Hello everyone and welcome back to Beyond the Apex. We're back in Bahrain for the first race of the 2024 season.
God, the excitement for this one was definitely high. I think everyone was missing Formula One, definitely. And we were all coming in with expectations that it'd all be close and everything like that, but it wasn't the case.
Yeah, it wasn't the case. I mean, we all knew that I think Red Bull were going to be very dominant throughout the whole weekend. But yeah, it just was proved, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was proved in the race. I mean, obviously Max wasn't as dominant in qualifying. Obviously there was a chance that Charles could have beat. Oh, he actually did beat Max this time, but in Q2. So obviously he didn't get pole. But the race pace was on another level.
Definitely. So we'll go straight into it, and we'll talk about Red Bull first. So obviously, like you said, a dominant race from him. I'm not sure whether qualifying wasn't dominant purely because he didn't set a lap, did he?
He only set one lap, and then he was fine on the first lap. And then it was. I think mainly, like last season, Red Bull are just kind of sacrificing quality pace to just dominate in the races because they know that even if Max was at the back, he would just be able to drive through the field.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's their main priority at the moment. But yeah, we'll talk about Perez, obviously.
Great drive. I mean, we didn't see this from him last season. Obviously, he had a very poor 60% of the season, and obviously he did a great job to secure a 1-2 in this race. And I mean, if he can carry this up, I mean, maybe he can, above all odds, get the seat for next season. I doubt it, but I mean, if he gets 1-2s every race, there's no reason why he shouldn't.
I was going to say that, if he's getting 1-2s every race, there's nothing better that he could do. He can't really beat Verstappen, so it's there's not, he's performing at the best possible place that that car can possibly be.
Absolutely. So, and I mean, at the moment, with everyone knows all the negative potential on the team. We're not going to go into it because majority of it is just rumours. But it is still impressive that despite all of that, despite all of the questions in the interviews and media being about that, they can still just deliver like this on race weekend.
Definitely, they've really seemed to not be as affected by what's happening in the media, and they've just kind of completely pushed it aside and focus on the race weekend, which is really good to see, to be honest. It's very positive.
But on to Mercedes now. It was a great qualifying from George.
It was,
I mean, he definitely still has the edge on Lewis. I don't think there's any doubt about that. In qualifying, for sure. Yeah. In the race, it's a lot closer, and possibly I think Lewis has that edge. But the race pace wasn't that strong for the Mercs.
No, it wasn't. You didn't really see them up in the top, fighting for, say, the podium.
No, absolutely not. And I think it's in comparison to Ferrari, there is definitely looking like, obviously we've gone to Ferrari, but it's definitely looking like it's a Red Bull, then it's the Ferrari, then it's kind of the block of Merc, Aston, McLaren, that kind of area. And it's just going to be very close between that block this season. But as I said, they kind of look around that McLaren mark at the moment. Maybe Aston a bit off the pace, but we'll go into that. But it was an okay race weekend. Yeah,
it was okay. Probably not what they wanted, like you said, but an okay race weekend. But similarly, we'll go into Ferrari. I mean, wow.
What a result for Sainz. I mean, he has taken the Lewis moving to Ferrari at the end of the season news and just gone, do you know what? Screw it, let's have a good race weekend. And he did. He got first podium of the year, which is great for him. Obviously, we have to talk about the issues that Charles was dealing with the brakes. He basically every time he braked, it veered off, and it was just horrific for the first 20 laps.
Yeah, definitely. But they just do look. Oh my god!
Your voice is gone. They look second fastest. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They look second fastest. I think there will be points at this season where they will be able to battle Red Bull, maybe at the likes of Monaco, maybe at the more kind of low speed tracks. I think they will definitely be able to bring that fight to Red Bull, but at the moment I think they are solidly second fastest.
Same, I agree. We'll go on to McLaren talking about that. It would. The expectations, I mean, we set and also they set as a team for this season.
They were a bit too high. And look, we do have with this one, we do have upgrades coming. I don't think that anyone's kind of in denial about that. Andrea Stella has come out and said, look, we are not going to be the quickest we're going to be this season at this point. I think we're bringing upgrades in China, which hopefully should bring the car up. But look, the quality could have been better. Lando and Piastri both made some mistakes in their laps. And the race pace was around the Merc, so it is a good foundation, but it isn't what we were expecting.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on to Aston Martin, talking about that, talking about kind of, the Mercs and the McLarens, and then Aston are just kind of there in the title, in that battle, but just not as strong. Like, I was going to say, I remember last year us being like, they're gonna be against Red Bull, they're going to
absolutely.
But
they really weren't. And look, we saw the likes of Alonso fighting against Max at some of the races last season, but they just weren't as strong this year. I mean, last year their quali pace wasn't the greatest. It wasn't like a Ferrari where their quali pace could battle the Red Bulls, but their race pace was where it was. And in this race, the race pace just wasn't really there. And look, Stroll was again behind Alonso, but Alonso was 9th, Stroll was 10th, so it wasn't too far off. But I think in the actual timings, I think it was about 20 seconds. Yeah, it was 19 seconds. So, is he doing the best he can for the team? No, he needs to get closer to Alonso, I feel like. But there is improvements.
Yeah, definitely. And they are definitely looking like towards the lower of the midfield.
Yes, I definitely think so. And they should be able to bring upgrades this season. Obviously, it is the first race of the season. We saw the likes of McLaren jump hugely last season. So, Aston could make that jump, especially with a big upgrade package. So, all's not lost.
Exactly. We'll move on to Alpine. I mean, we're going to say this, I think this is going to be a recurring theme, but for the whole 2024 season, absolutely dreadful. Yeah,
the car was just a bus, and it didn't, the quali pace, it was horrific. I mean, Gasly qualified P20, which he did last season, funny enough, I think, but it wasn't because of that.
No.
But it is clearly the slowest car, and you can tell that the project in itself is not going well because everyone's leaving. I mean, we got the news after Bahrain that I think the head of design and the head of development have gone now.
Yeah, and I think the head of aero and the head of technical has also gone.
Yeah, because I think they're just restructuring the whole thing. I think they're taking more of a McLaren kind of 3-pillar design for their kind of top management. But there needs to be reform in that team because it is not looking good. And honestly, I've been saying this for because obviously we're filming this after Saudi, but we should just. I genuinely think Andretti is going to look at buying that team. I think if they if they go into 2025 and they're still kind of the slowest, because it is clearly the engine. Obviously, they're a works team. Their engine just isn't where it should be, and I really do think that if they carry on at this trajectory, the Renault management is just going to want to sell that team, and Andretti are going to be the ones who are going to want to buy it.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the only way that it's looking likely at the moment.
Yeah.
But we'll move on to Williams. I mean,
again, not as great as we kind of expected.
No. I mean, I think they did look a little bit more kind of racy in the race, so 100%, but not as strong.
No, they really weren't as strong. And look, I mean, the Williams last season was only really strong because it was just a bullet in the straights.
Yes.
And I think on a track like Bahrain, it's difficult to kind of do well if you're not fast in the straights. And they've definitely gone to trying to make that car more kind of able to have more race pace. And I think on different tracks it is going to be improved. However, this race clearly wasn't.
No, clearly not. I mean, not a great start to the season for them, but I suppose it could have been worse.
100% it could have been worse. And I mean, look, I think we should talk about Sargent, because even though he was a couple laps off, his pace was okay.
Yeah.
It was definitely closer to Albon than it was last year, where he would be like 5-6 tenths off the pace.
We were saying last year that Sargent should leave and we should get another driver in. But I'm not seeing this year. I think they're definitely closer.
100%. And I mean, look, he wasn't in qualifying, and he definitely needs to kind of get to his peak in qualifying.
Yeah.
But in the race, he is just starting to get more and more solid. And we are seeing, I think, the Sargent that Williams expected to see last year.
Definitely.
So it is positive signs.
Yeah.
But moving on to Racing Bulls. Oh my god, drama. Oh my god, drama. I mean, at the end of the race, if you didn't watch it, they swapped Tsunoda and Ricciardo while Tsunoda was battling, I think it was Zhou?
Yeah, I think it was
Zhou. And Tsunoda was not happy about it, obviously, because he was literally mid-fight when they tried to swap the drivers. Tsunoda complied, Ricciardo got in front, and then couldn't actually get in front of Zhou, but they kept them like that after the checkered flag. Which just didn't make sense, because they should have at least given Tsunoda some more time. But then we get on Tsunoda at the end of the race, which after the checkered flag, he sent it out the inside of one of the corners and then nearly crashed into Ricciardo.
Yeah, after the checkered flag.
Yeah, which is incredibly petulant from him. I mean, obviously, I think it's kind of the Tsunoda we saw in 2021.
I was going to say, it is typical Tsunoda, not surprising, but also incredibly dangerous. And that's caused a lot of drama, especially with the media afterwards, you know, like you're saying in the interviews. There's a lot of tension in that team.
Oh yes, and I think especially with a driver pairing that we've looked at as one of the closest, I think Daniel has to demolish Tsunoda this year to have a chance of getting that Red Bull seat. And at the moment it's a lot closer than everyone thought it would be. So I think tensions are going to start building on that team. And with Lauren Meckies, obviously he's a first year team principal, he's been thrown in the deep end.
Yes, he has. It's going to be very interesting to see what kind of comes from that team and whether, like you said, Daniel will get the Red Bull seat.
Yeah, it is. And obviously we thought that team was going to be a lot stronger on race pace from pre-season testing, and obviously they weren't as well. So people were saying, oh yeah, but it was for P13, it doesn't matter. I think Red Bull has given the drivers a conundrum. And if Ricciardo has a certain amount of head-to-head battles, so for instance, if he outraces Tsunoda 15-7 races, he'll get that Red Bull seat. I think that's the conundrum they're given, and that's why Tsunoda was so kind of petulant about having that place over Ricciardo. I think there's some behind the scenes on that needs to be kind of looked into.
Definitely, I agree. Right, we'll move on to Sauber now.
Yeah, difference from what we kind of said last year. It was a great drive from Zhou. I mean, he was running in the points for a while, definitely had the edge on Bottas, and that car has a lot more race pace than we initially thought it would this season. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, from what we saw at pre-season testing, we were just like, our expectations were on the ground.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
You know, and they've come into the first race and they've actually proven us wrong.
They've done very well. I mean, I think at least Zhou got into Q2, or maybe he didn't. Maybe he just had a very good drive.
Yeah.
But he was solidly running in the points. I genuinely believe he would stay in the points. However, obviously, I think it was. There was a driver that hadn't pitted yet and then made a climb. I think it was Stroll. Stroll hadn't pitted yet, then pitted, went behind Zhou and then brought himself back up again. It was either Stroll or Alonso.
I was going to say, you know, I was saying this, but on the basis that, you know, like, other teams have not been doing very well.
100%.
Like Alpine, for example.
Yeah, so we are kind of looking at these teams in comparison because obviously we thought Sauber would be doing badly, but maybe they are doing badly and just teams are doing a lot worse. Yeah.
It is that kind of like, I don't know,
So it's not like they're battling with the Astons. I think he was, obviously it just says +1 lap here, but they were miles off.
Yes.
So they need to kind of make those jumps, but it is going to be interesting.
It is, it really is. Right, finally, we'll move on to Haas.
I think we were completely wrong. And I'm going to put my hands up and say, I said I'd put my house on them being P10.
Yeah.
I'm going to withdraw that.
Yeah.
Because
they're... lose your house.
Yes. I think I was talking about my leasehold. But their tyre wear has 1,000,000% improved. I mean, Ayo Komatsu came to this season and was like, right, just ignore us for the first couple of races because we are going to be dead last. And they weren't. Yeah. Their race pace was very strong. Hulkenberg got into Q3, which was unreal. And if it wasn't for his lap 1 incident, I think he would have been in the points.
Yeah, same, I agree. It was absolutely amazing, and they actually showed pace for once.
Which is so surprising, because obviously last year, we would see Hulk get like great qualifying performance out of it, because they could heat up their tyres so well. But that heating up of the tyres just completely destroyed them in the race. Yeah. So it's great to see now they can actually fight in the race.
Yeah, definitely, and it'll be really interesting to see, like, I don't know, the season so far and how they're actually going to do. Obviously, like you said, with Sauber, it is kind of indicative of like Alpine being quite bad.
Yes, but I think Haas has actually made improvements.
Yeah, I think so too, especially like you said with the tyre wear problems, they've really kind of pushed on that, and clearly it has worked. So.
Absolutely.
And hopefully they do well, because they're in my fantasy.
Yeah, but yeah, we are both we should just clarify, we are both properly doing fantasy this year.
Yeah.
And currently, after Bahrain, we are 1 point between each other, and I'm currently winning. So we will keep that battle on the podcast and keep you updated. But yeah, I mean, it was great to see Haas do well, because they are one of those teams that they could go under if they don't do well for a couple of seasons, and it is great to see them doing well.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. So that really kind of rounds up Bahrain. Obviously, we're back in Saudi again next week. Was this weekend?
Yeah, it was this weekend.
But yeah, so we'll get back to you about that race weekend. And yeah, it was really great to be back.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.